Good morning, I'm Father Ryan Humphries. This is the Catholic Underground CU Catechast, and I'm very, very happy to be back with you now that it is August. We are ready to pick up again, and we'll continue having these every Wednesday morning. If you do have topics, please do not comment on them, because I'm not going to go read the comments. Please feel free to email me, call me, text me, any of the things you can ordinarily do, but for the love of God, don't comment. I don't read them. I have no idea what's there, and please don't ask personal questions in the comments. That's just bad in general. So anyway, that being said, one of the most common topics that Catholics ask for in talks like these is, how do I avoid sin, right? How do I not sin? Obviously, we know that there's a moral law that we need to follow, but what about, and this is purely hypothetical, what about if there's a pressing need for a morally sketchy vaccine? Purely hypothetical. We don't know much of anything about the vaccine itself. We don't know what kind of research was done, whether the research was morally conducted. We don't know much about the side effects, whether it actually works. We have no idea. It's a big black box of an idea. So is it sinful to get the vaccine? Do I commit a sin if I do that? Do I avoid sin by not getting it? It's a genuine question, and it's not one I'm going to address today, but it is one of those questions. What happens when there's not a crystal clear right and wrong? What happens when I'm not 100% sure of the effects and side effects of my own choices? Now, generally speaking, the Church tells us there are 9 ways that we can sin by participating with evil. That's the way we phrase it. You can sin by counsel, that is avoiding someone or giving my opinion that they should commit a sin. I can sin by command, that is telling someone to do something which is sinful. I can participate with evil by consenting to it, especially as a parent, saying, yes, this is a good thing, go do this. I can participate with evil by provocation. I can dare someone or manipulate someone into doing something which is evil. I can cooperate with evil by praise of that evil. I can cooperate by concealing the fact that it is evil and telling someone that it's okay or it's good. I can participate with evil by partaking, that is direct participation. I can participate with evil by being silent about it, or I can defend the evil. I can justify it or make excuses. And if you think about that list for a minute, and it's a list we've heard because I've given that talk 2 or 3 times already, we start to see that there are 2 kind of categories that emerge in that list. There are sins that I commit when I participate with evil, but there are also sins I cause others to commit when I, tell them this is okay, or when I don't challenge that they think this is right, or whatever the case may be. And we have to remember, sin always multiplies. Sin always begets other sin. And so if I sin by not telling someone something is wrong or by not giving them a reasonable alternative, then my sin causes them to sin, and that sin multiplies. Now, the Bible has very few happy things to say about people who cause others to sin. There's a particularly spicy bit about having a millstone tied around your neck and being hurled into the sea. It's not great reading, but you can find out more about it in Matthew 18 and Mark 9. So what do I do when I cause someone else to commit a sin? What responsibility do I have? What can I do to get forgiven for my own sin? And then what can I do for the person that I've led astray? And it's a real question. It's not something that's theoretical or hypothetical. We've all done this at one point or other in our lives. So some years ago, I was a senior in high school. This is back in the 90s. I was asked to teach CCD. I was nowhere near mature enough to teach freshman CCD, but the parish was desperate. They begged me to do it. And so for about 6 months as a senior in high school, I was teaching freshman CCD. One evening, there's a typical freshman guy who is not interested. He's too cool for school. He was pushing my buttons. He wouldn't shut his trap. We've never experienced anything like this from teenagers, I'm sure. But, this was driving me to the edge of my sanity. He was obnoxious. He enjoyed getting my goat. And finally, on some random Wednesday night in the late 90s, I lost my temper. I yelled at him and I chewed him out. And I said, you're just an obnoxious young man. And he said, you know what, just get out. Just go away. And there's no charity, there's no kindness. I can't go back and defend what I did. I can't say there was a good, justifiable reason for it. I was a kid. I did not have the maturity to try to teach other kids, and that's all I can say. That's the best I can do. I don't remember the kid's name. I have no way of following up, but I can't imagine that he's practicing his Catholic faith nowadays if his CCD teacher lost his head and kicked him out of the class and told him he's a terrible person. Maybe he is. Maybe my sin did not affect him in the way I expect, but maybe it did. Maybe it had profound effect upon him, and maybe he left the church because of that. And where does that leave me? What situation does that put me in? I would then be causing someone else to apostatize. I would be causing someone else to commit a new sin every time he missed Sunday Mass because he was a baptized Catholic. So what can I do? Obviously, if I could look him up and go talk to him and mentor him or whatever, that might be a possibility. But given that that's impossible, what can I do? Well, first and foremost, I need to go to confession and get my own house in order. That's the beginning of all things in Christianity. I need to get my own house in order. But then I'm in a position to pray for that young man, which I do, and I'm in a position to be attentive to the Lord. And the Lord is the only one who actually knows what's going on, right? I mean, the Lord's the only one with the information at hand to know what happened. I know I screwed up with this kid, but there have got to be 100 other times I've screwed up with 100 other people, and I have no idea about it. I mean, I've got no clue of other people that I've hurt, that I may have done damage to their faith. And so all I can do in that regard is ask the Lord's forgiveness for anyone who I've rubbed the wrong way, and then ask the Lord, to do whatever needs to be done. Lord, give me instruction. Tell me what to do. If I can make it right with this person, great. If I can't, then Lord, give me something, or send someone into their life, or direct me to help, fix somebody else's blunder, whatever the case might be. But the Lord alone is the only one who can actually make this stuff right. Now, the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous are really good for organizing our thoughts on this, because that's exactly the kind of thing that addicts are dealing with. Addiction hurts everyone else in an addict's life. We all know that. And the 12 steps were put together by some good Christian people and later on by a handful of Catholic priests that helped to really create this kind of structure which runs parallel to the entire Christian faith. So I love the 12 steps. I'm a big, big fan. My spiritual director in seminary was a big fan and wrote a doctoral thesis in like 8 separate languages. It was really hard to read because there were no translations given because he was smart, about how addiction works and how the 12 steps address it. But in AA, step 4 calls for making a fearless moral inventory, basically an examination of conscience. What's going on inside? What have I done? What can I do? That's a good thing, and that's part of that getting my own house in order. But step 8 calls for making a list of all the persons that I've harmed and becoming willing to make amends for them all. Now, that's a good thing, too, because it allows me to go back through and say, are there big moments that stand out of people that I've really hurt as regards my sin causing them to sin? And granted, we could beat ourselves with a stick over this and basically just become incredibly depressed and spend the next 6 months listing every slight that we can possibly remember. That's not helpful. But when I'm thinking back in my own life of this kid in CCD or of a handful of other people with whom I've really kind of just not been the charitable person that God calls me to be, that then becomes the list that's helpful. And then the 9th step of Alcoholics Anonymous directs the addict to make direct amends to such people whenever possible, except when doing so would injure them or others. Now, that's one of my favorite steps in AA, because that's something we can realistically do, and it has a big old parentheses on the end and says, hey, you're trying to make amends, but it ain't about you. It's not about me. It's about them. They're the one who was hurt by my drama. I'm trying to get my drama in order, so if I can help them, let me help them. But if my help is not going to help them, then I need to stay away and simply pray for them. And when it comes to the ways that we participate with evil, that strikes me as an extremely well-phrased way to address it. If my sin, let's say it was provocation, or if my sin was concealment, or if my sin was counseling someone to do wrong, I may or may not be helping them by going up to them and saying, I feel bad about the way I hurt you, so in order to make myself feel better, I need you to refigure your entire life. That's not the attitude that the Lord asks us to have. We need to go to them as an act of love, not as an act of selfishness, not as an act of I need to feel better, but hey, I shortchanged you. God had something more for you, and I withheld it. I participated with evil. I led you down this road. This is my mistake, and as an act of love for you, I want to help you and correct that mistake if I can. Again, knowing that there's a strong possibility that's not going to be possible, especially if it's something in my past. If I were to find that kid randomly living in Delhi, Louisiana, who I chewed out years and years ago, it may or may not be helpful that the worst example he has of Christianity rambles up to him and says, hey, let me tell you about how you need to get your life in order because I hurt you so many years ago. Probably not going to be helpful for him. Now, if as a church we really are one another's brother's keepers, so to speak, then we're going to hurt one another by our sin. It's built right into who we are. Conscious or unconscious, deliberate or accidental, sins of commission or sins of omission, all of our personal sins hurt the rest of the church. And when we stop and think about it, that's the entire understanding of the Christian community that God gives us. All of us have led others to sin because we have not been the saints that God calls us to be. And as we are a family, as we are a communion of faith, the nature of the church is such that our Christian community, any failure of mine, even if that failure is simply not being heroic in my faith, is a detriment to everybody else. And so our moments of judgment or of gossip or of laziness in prayer or of cowardice when we should have spoken up for a moral or religious truth of our faith or whatever, those failures affect all of us. And it's one of the essential reasons that we insist on confession by means of the sacrament and not just privately, because our sins are not just sins against the Lord, they're sins against the community. They're sins against the Lord's body, the body of his church, and we are the members of that body. Now, the good news is that the church is designed specifically to address that reality. And again, those same two steps I mentioned at the beginning are really clear. First, confession, where I make amends to the Lord and I'm reconciled to his body, the church. And then second, prayer, asking God to reconcile those who I've hurt back to the church. And if I need to play a part in that reconciliation, then I need to do that. And the Lord might use me to do that reconciliation. He might not. I doubt, again, like I said, I'm ever going to meet that kid I hurt years ago, and I can't count the number of people who have come to the church and found me personally grating, or who have come and heard a sermon that they felt was unhelpful, or my way of offering Mass was unsatisfying for them, or one of my decisions as the pastor or the president of the school upset them, or whatever. And I won't know until judgment who I might have helped or hurt through a lot of my decisions, and there's no way I can track those people down under my own power. But the Lord can bring me into contact with any of those people at any moment and give me the understanding and the opportunity to make amends to them for my sin, or maybe use me to bring someone who was hurt by someone else closer to the Lord. It's not going to be my doing, it's going to be God. Psalm 127, one of my very favorite psalms, begins with the phrase, "Unless the Lord builds the house, in vain do the builders labor." Unless the Lord is the one who is making these things happen, nothing's going to come of it. And we could think about, too, the parable of the seeds and the sower. We can throw the seed anywhere we want, but unless the soil is ripe, there's nothing we can do to make it happen. We may or may not know what effect our decisions and choices have on any specific person, but we do know that God is good, we know God is wise, we know God is loving. We can't save ourselves, and we can't save anybody else. All we can do is return to the Lord again and again, begging for his mercy upon ourselves and on the sins of the whole world. And that's where the Lord gives us opportunities to heal wounds, ask forgiveness, humble ourselves, share his healing mercy, speak the truth in love, and where he gives us those opportunities, we have an obligation to act on them. Where he doesn't give us those opportunities, we pray that he gives those opportunities to someone else. I hope very much that that little kid went to the director of the CCD program and said, you got that ass in there teaching my class, and he's a jerk, and you should go walk in there and hit him with a pool noodle and cast him out of the church. And I hope that he went to the pastor of the church, and Monsignor Hoppy said, that guy is an ass. I've met him. You know what? That's okay. Let's send you over to Prompt Succor, and let's get you in the program there where you can find someone who's actually good at what he does, and who knows? Maybe that kid is now living a good life as a practicing Catholic. I don't know. I hope that's the way it played out, but we just can't know, and I can never know, and that's one of the good things. Not knowing means I've got to constantly pray for him, constantly seek the Lord's mercy, and I hope that you'll pray for that random kid in 1996 at CCD at Cabrini who had a bad experience with his wildly immature teacher, but I hope we all pray for those people that we feel like we've hurt or that we've led astray. It's a good thing to feel like I've got something on the line. I've got skin in the game where I need to constantly pray for that person or those people so that the Lord is constantly drawing me nearer to himself, because we've all sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. We all need God's mercy. And if the Lord gives me an opportunity to make amends to someone I've hurt, then thanks be to God. If the Lord uses someone else for that, then thanks be to God. But let's all hope and pray that the Lord will give us, each and every one of us, whatever it is that we need to both make amends within ourselves and get our own house in order, and that he will extend his mercy to those who we cause to sin by our own weaknesses and our own failures. And so that is the conclusion of our CU Catecast for today. I hope this is in some way helpful for you. If it is not in some way helpful for you, again, don't leave it in the comments. Please feel free to email me or to call me or whatever, but please don't leave it in the comments. They're not going to get read. Otherwise, hope you have a wonderful afternoon. This has been Father Ryan Humphries. This has been the CU Catecast. Have a great day.